Welcome to the Parts channel. Today, we explain Genesis chapter 44 in a clear and simple way, step by step. I am so incredibly thrilled you're joining us for this, because honestly, this chapter is one of the absolute masterpieces of biblical narrative. It is a story packed with extreme tension, hidden identities, and ultimately, a breathtaking sacrifice. Throughout this explainer, we're going to look strictly at the plain, literal meaning of the text, the pashhat. We'll be examining the who, the what, the where, and the why, so you can thoroughly and confidently grasp exactly what's happening in this highly dramatic encounter. So here is our roadmap for today's walkthrough. First, we'll quickly review the story so far. Second, we'll examine the silver cup trap. Third, we'll dive into Judah's desperate plea. Fourth, we'll look at the key simple ideas. Fifth, we'll pull out some practical life lessons. And finally, section 6 will be our chapter 44 recap.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, the story so far.
Let's set the stage. Right now, there is a massive, relentless famine ravaging the land of Canaan. The brothers of Joseph, who, remember, still have absolutely no clue that the immensely powerful Egyptian ruler they are dealing with is actually their long-lost brother, well, they've come down to Egypt for a second time to buy food. Previously, this ruler demanded that to prove they weren't spies, they had to bring their youngest brother, Benjamin, back with them. And you might recall, their father, Jacob, fiercely refused to let Benjamin go until they were all practically starving to death. So imagine the relief the brothers must be feeling right at this moment. They just survived a super tense dinner hosted by this terrifying ruler, they've successfully secured their desperately needed grain, and best of all, Benjamin is completely safe. They are literally packing up to head back home, totally believing the worst is finally behind them. But man, they are completely unaware of what's about to hit them.
Which brings us to section 2, the silver cup trap.
In verses 1 and 2, Joseph gives his steward some incredibly precise, step-by-step instructions. He commands him, fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's silver right in the mouth of his sack. Now that alone is wildly generous, but then comes the devastating twist. Joseph orders the steward to take a very specific object, his own personal silver cup, and plant it directly in the mouth of the youngest brother's sack, right along with the silver for his grain. And the steward does exactly as he's told in total secrecy. So now Benjamin, the favored youngest son, is unknowingly carrying stolen property that belongs to the second most powerful man in the known world. As morning dawns in verses 3 through 5, the men are sent on their way with their loaded down donkeys. That beautiful dawn really represents a false sense of hope, a peaceful departure for them. But they barely make it out of the city when Joseph springs his trap. He commands his steward to go after them immediately. When the steward catches up, his orders are to aggressively confront them and demand, "Why have you repaid good with evil?" This abrupt, jarring transition from a calm morning journey to a terrifying interception on the open road absolutely shatters the brothers' brief moment of relief. Now take a close look at the specific accusation the steward makes in verse 5. He explicitly asks, "Isn't this the cup my master drinks from and also uses for divination? This is a wicked thing you have done." So what is a divination cup? Well, it was a special tool used by ancient rulers and priests to seek out hidden knowledge, usually by interpreting the patterns of liquid inside it. By claiming they stole this specific item, the steward is escalating this way beyond petty theft. He's sending a chilling signal to the brothers. You are dealing with a ruler who possesses supernatural, piercing insight. The terrifying implication here is that you simply can't hide anything from a man who sees all secrets. In verses 6 through 9, the steward repeats this heavy accusation verbatim to the brothers. And they are just absolutely floored. They fiercely deny the charge, and they use a deeply logical argument from lesser to greater to defend themselves. They essentially say, look, we even brought back the silver we found inside our sacks from Canaan last time. Why on earth would we turn around and steal silver or gold from your master's house? To prove just how incredibly certain they are of their innocence, they offer up a shockingly harsh self-imposed punishment. They confidently declare that if anyone among them is actually found with this cup, that person will be put to death and the rest of them will willingly become slaves. That's how sure they are that they didn't take it. Moving right along to verses 10 through 13, the steward actually dials back their drastic terms. He says, okay, let it be as you say, but with a slight change. Whoever is found to have it will become my slave, but the rest of you will be completely free from blame. Instantly, the brothers lower their heavy sacks to the ground. The steward begins searching, very deliberately, starting with the oldest brother Reuben and methodically working his way down to the youngest. Imagine the agonizing, heart-pounding psychological pressure building up with every single cleared sack. Finally, he reaches the youngest. And there it is. The cup is found in Benjamin's sack. The text tells us that at this, they tore their clothes. In the ancient Near East, tearing your garments wasn't just, oh, I'm frustrated. It was a visceral, physical manifestation of total despair, absolute grief, and a literal symbol of mourning for the dead. In their minds, Benjamin's life is practically over, and by extension, their father's life is too. In complete, stunned silence, they load their donkeys back up and return to the dreaded city.
This brings us to Section 3, Judah's desperate plea.
In verses 14 through 16, Judah and his brothers return to Joseph's house. He's still there waiting for them, and they immediately throw themselves face down on the ground before him. Joseph harshly demands, "What is this you have done? Don't you know a man like me can find things out by divination?" Now, notice what Judah does here. He doesn't even attempt to make excuses. He doesn't try to defend them or argue that someone obviously planted the cup. Instead, he just says, "What can we say? How can we prove our innocence?" He fully recognizes that a divine reckoning is unfolding. He states, "God has uncovered your servant's guilt. We are now my Lord's slaves, we ourselves, along with the one who was found to have the cup." He explicitly links all of their fates together. And here's the profound part. The guilt that God has uncovered isn't the theft of the cup, because they didn't do that. It's their deeply buried, unconfessed guilt for selling their brother Joseph into slavery 22 years earlier.
But in verse 17, Joseph instantly rejects this idea of collective punishment. He says, "Far be it from me to do such a thing. Only the man who is found to have the cup will become my slave. As for the rest of you," he says, "go back to your father in peace." He isolates Benjamin entirely. And you see, this is the ultimate test. It's the entire reason Joseph engineered this agonizing high-stakes scenario. He wants to know, will these 10 men let Benjamin take the fall? Will they walk away free and return to their father without the favored son, doing the exact same thing they did to Joseph years ago? The trap is fully sprung, and the exit door is wide open for them to leave. And that is when Judah steps up. In verses 18 through 23, Judah begins what is actually the longest single speech in the entire book of Genesis. He respectfully asks for permission to speak, fully acknowledging Joseph's immense, terrifying power, equating him to Pharaoh himself. He meticulously walks through the history of their previous interactions, completely reconstructing the timeline for the ruler. He reminds Joseph, "Look, you were the one who asked if we had a father or a brother. We answered you honestly about our aged father and the young son born in his old age whose brother is dead. And you, my lord, were the one who demanded we bring him down here, warning us we'd never see your face again unless he was with us." It's brilliant. Judah is diplomatically, yet very firmly, pointing out that Joseph himself forced this vulnerable boy into this highly dangerous situation.
In verses 24 through 28, Judah continues this incredibly impassioned plea by directly quoting his father Jacob. He relays the agonizing, heartbreaking conversation they had when they were desperately trying to convince Jacob to let Benjamin go. Jacob had told them, "You know my wife Rachel bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, 'He has surely been torn to pieces,' and I have not seen him since." Think about how profoundly loaded this moment is in the text. Judah has no idea, but he is speaking directly to the very brother who was supposedly torn to pieces. He is literally describing the utter devastation of Joseph's disappearance to Joseph himself. Judah then explains in verse 29 the terrible, entirely irreversible stakes of this whole situation. He quotes his father saying, "If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery." Now, the Hebrew word used for the grave here is Sheol. It's really important to clarify that Sheol doesn't just mean a physical dirt hole in the ground. It represents a total descent into absolute, unrecoverable sorrow, darkness, and mourning. If Benjamin doesn't come back, Jacob isn't just going to be sad. His spirit will be completely extinguished. He will literally die of a broken heart, plunging straight into Sheol. Continuing on in verses 30 and 31, Judah heavily emphasizes this profound life-or-death emotional bond. He tells Joseph, "My father's life is closely bound up with the boy's life." In the original Hebrew, the phrasing is beautifully literal. His soul is tied to the boy's soul. If Jacob sees that the boy isn't with them when they get back, he's just going to die right then and there. And Judah plainly states the devastating consequence for the brothers. "Your servants will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow." If they walk away without Benjamin, they will be directly, undeniably responsible for killing their own father. Now watch how all of this builds to the absolute climax of the chapter in verses 32 through 34. Judah reveals to the Egyptian ruler that he personally guaranteed the boy's safety to his father. He took on the full legal and moral responsibility, and then he makes the ultimate sacrifice. He says, "Now then, please let your servant remain here as my lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers." He states simply that he absolutely cannot bear to see the misery that would destroy his father. This is just a breathtaking moment. Judah, the very same brother who orchestrated the selling of Joseph into slavery decades earlier, is now offering up his own life, his own permanent loss of freedom, just to save Rachel's other son and spare his father's life. Okay, let's move into section 4, key simple ideas.
Let's take a step back for a moment and look at the core ideas derived strictly from the plain, literal meaning of this incredible text. The plain meaning reveals a dramatic, brilliantly orchestrated test of character. Joseph wasn't just being arbitrarily cruel to them, he was conducting a deeply necessary test. The trap was explicitly designed to perfectly recreate the conditions of the past. He gave the older brothers an easy, legally justified opportunity to eliminate the new favored son of their father, save their own skin, and walk away totally free. But the result shows us profound, undeniable change. When that cup is found, they don't say, "Well, tough luck, Benjamin." No, they choose to suffer together. They tear their clothes, and Judah proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the toxic cycle of jealousy and betrayal has been utterly broken by physically stepping into the place of the condemned.
Now on to section 5, practical life lessons. So what plain, practical lessons can we actually pull from this narrative to improve ourselves in our own daily lives? Well, Judah gives us an absolute masterclass in taking action broken down into 3 steps. First, step forward during a crisis. When everyone else was completely paralyzed, tearing their clothes in despair and just waiting for doom, Judah found his voice and spoke up. Second, take absolute responsibility. Even in a situation that seemed wildly unfair, he didn't point fingers at Benjamin and he didn't complain about the Egyptian ruler's trap. He simply stated the facts and owned his moral obligations. And third, protect the vulnerable at your own expense. He literally placed himself physically and legally between the absolute, terrifying power of the Egyptian ruler and the vulnerability of his younger brother. Furthermore, this chapter shows us exactly what true repentance looks like in real, observable action. You see, it isn't just about feeling sorry or giving an apology. True repentance requires completely changed behavior when you are faced with the exact same choice a second time. We also see that profound empathy. Judah's agonizing understanding of his father's unending pain over losing Joseph is exactly what drives his desperate need to prevent it from happening again with Benjamin. Finally, we learn that true leadership requires deep personal sacrifice. Judah takes on the mantle of leadership for the entire family in this crucial moment precisely because he is the one willing to become a slave so the others can go free. Finally, let's wrap up with section 6, chapter 44, recap.
In this incredibly powerful chapter, we watched Joseph deliberately hide his divination cup in Benjamin's sack to rigorously test his brother's character. The brothers depart in peace but are immediately pursued, intercepted, and accused of grave theft. Upon a dramatically tense search, the cup is found with the youngest, and rather than abandoning him to slavery like they once did to Joseph, they all return to the city in absolute despair. Finally, Judah steps forward in a phenomenal, historically significant speech, offering his own freedom to save Benjamin and spare their father's life from total ruin. Before we go today, I want you to ask yourself, when faced with the hard choice between self-preservation and protecting someone vulnerable, do you have the courage of Judah to step in the gap? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.